Hey, well, welcome to Men Are Forged podcast. Got a great guest today, Steven Lentz, coming all the way from Seattle, just up the road, right?
Yeah, just a couple clicks away.
Right. Steven, great to have you in, man.
No, I think I'm excited to be here. I saw your podcast, Men Are Forged. I was like, "Ooh, that sounds really cool."
Yeah.
Like very blacksmithy, right? Like I have one really big arm, and I'm ready to go to battle with some iron.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I got
I don't know if you're a fan of the show Last Kingdom. One of my favorite scenes. You ever watch that show on Netflix?
I haven't.
Oh, so great. Anyway,
No, I'm sorry.
I won't go on a tangent on how much I'm a fan of that show, but there's a great scene like in the second episode where they're forging a sword. I'm like, that's what us as men, we're really being shaped by life, by who we are, every little thing. And if we don't embrace that process, then what's the point? And so that's why I like getting people like you on the podcast to hear their story. Because I know you've been through a lot, you've lived your life, you've got some lessons where now you're in a place where you can kind of leverage who you are to support your family and do the things you want to do. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's been a journey.
Yeah. See, exactly. Like if it was easy, it'd be boring, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm waiting for the easy. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Same, my friend. Same. Well, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, so I try to start with some fun question, but the one I've been on recently is just, what's a fond early childhood memory that you have, Steven?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a military family. All right. So that means I moved around every 2 to 4 years. So I have no concept of like childhood friends or hometown. Right. Like it doesn't exist for me. So like good childhood memory. Let me just sprinkle in some trauma, right? Like,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, my first like real memories that I can like actually visualize is we're in California. We lived on a hill and we overlooked the ocean, and it was on a military base or just outside of it. And I learned to ride my bike on a super steep hill, and we had a neighbor who had a crocodile in their bathtub. Like just bizarre. like the sunsets on this rock and swing were nice, and we had a neighbor with a crocodile, and I learned to ride a bike on a super scary hill. Like that's my first reason. Like for some reason I cherish that. It's kind of weird. But as far as like a good memory of like, this is parenting, this is what I don't want to do. My parents believed in taking vacations, which is awesome, but they believed in driving everywhere.
Oh, you're one of those families. Yeah,
I was one of those families. Yeah. But we didn't drive to fun places. We drove to like Gettysburg and Yorktown and Jamestown and Williamsburg, and we would go like watch people in colonial clothes churn butter. Like that was vacation. I'm not kidding. Right. Like, I distinctly remember my brother and I just like being just little bitches, and am I allowed to say bitches on your show?
Yeah, you're good.
We were bitches, and just like guilt tripped my dad into taking us to a water park for a day. And like I remember him making us feel so bad and terrible about like ruining their vacation of going to Gettysburg, but not like running in the fields like, hey, let's pull over and look at this, like huge ass field where a bunch of people died a long time ago. Like, cool, can we break out the frisbee? No. Like, in the car. So yeah, water park for a family vacation. That was the thing. Like we would rail against our parents for like one fun day on these family vacations that we drove to for 12 plus hours.
There you go. Yeah. So water park was that one release, that one childhood. Like I don't have to hear like some guy dressed up in a like useless Grant or something telling some story.
Oh God, just terrible.
That's funny.
Yeah, my wife was like, "Oh, have you ever been to Williamsburg?" I was like, "No, we're not going. Don't bring it up.
No, I'm good. Been there enough.
We'll go somewhere else. We'll have fun."
So yeah, I mean, on that. So I mean, it sounds like you had a military family, a lot of historical influence. Who were some of your early influences that kind of shaped a lot of your thinking today as a man, like about success, about career, about masculinity?
That is a great question, and one that's not actually easily answered.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, this football guy is my hero, or I wanted to be this, so this guy's my like. Yeah. I didn't really have that.
Yeah.
Like the main influence in my life, and again, like moving around so much, I didn't have a constant input of another influential person in my life, right? So that, you know, uncle that you're close to, or youth pastor, or whatever it is, you know, I didn't really have that. And so like growing up, like the main influence was my dad, but he was working a lot. And so, you know, he would come home and not super present. It's like he provides for his family really well. And that's awesome. Like I want to make sure that I provide for my family, right? Like that's a big part of my manhood is what I took from that. You know, character flaws aside, like providing for the family is really awesome. That's how he showed his love. Right. And so I think that was influential. And then when I moved out to here, 2001, just turning 16, Washington State, met a youth pastor who was really influential.
Yeah.
And just like finally found, because my dad had retired from the military at that point, and they'll move you back as far as wherever they came from. They came from Washington. And so this was like the start of, I've been in Washington 20-ish, no, close to 20 years now, I think. Yeah. That's wild. That's wild. Again, like my concept of time is shot. Right. Like, I don't have it. So to be here for 20 years.
Change has been your influence because that's all you've had. Yeah.
So I had a youth pastor for like the first 3-4 years that I was here. And that really was a big influence in my life of like a Christian man who had good values, that was present and cared about you and wanted to see you grow and see you do good. Like all these inputs that I didn't really get necessarily, like, hey, I'm proud of you.
Wow.
Right. Like I knew my dad, I think, was kind of right. Like I just switched as I'm saying it, right? I think he was proud of me. Like I don't know. I mean, spoiler alert, I'm like a pseudo disowned. So right. Like for all the people who are listening and, you know, you have family shit, like I have family shit. Right. Like my parents haven't seen my 5-year-old, and they live like 15 minutes away. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
So that
I mean, there's a lot to unpack, right? So but going back to like that role model is I didn't really have a set role model. And, you know, the high school youth pastor was great to a point, and then I was past that. Right. And like I've moved around in Washington State like every few years, just with like jobs and school and everything else. And it's been wild. And so my role models have been people with direct influence in my life. Have you watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm somewhat like Jake Peralta, and like my daddy issues to Captain Holt. Right. Like I have this male man in my life I'm like, oh, this guy is legit. Like this is really cool. Like I want to embody these characteristics of this. Like I haven't had someone inputting these things into my life. Yeah. Right. And I don't see or get that from this nebulous idea of a famous person. Right. I don't care about famous people. It doesn't have any bearing in my life. And I don't care, you know, that, well, this guy, you know, shows up for practice every day. Well, that's cool, but that doesn't impact, like, I don't have that direct thing that I crave. Right. So the super roundabout answer of, you know, role models is, I think it's been this nebulous thing of like, who do I know immediately in my life that embodies really good traits, and trying to emulate parts of them. So yeah,
it's great, man.
I hope that's decent.
That's good. I think a lot of millennials, guys our age, very similar story of, you know, my dad was there, he provided, so he kind of checked the basic marks, but from having like the constant male or males in my life who are like, be this kind of man, set these foundations of what success really means. Cause I think it's just we're all kind of making it up from what we've seen. Yeah. Absolutely. We're not really having intentional, like pointed, like tip of the spear type mindset towards our own life and success and meaning and all that. So it's just kind of like free fall. Like it's more like a shotgun effect, right? Yes. So yeah, I mean, to that effect. So that made you decide to go to Washington State. Is that what you said? Cougars?
Less of a decision and more of like, this is where I ended up. Like as a minor that's not emancipated or whatever it's called, right? Like I follow my parents because they provide for me, and that's where I was. So by default, I ended up in Washington State.
Gotcha. Which is from what I know, like UW's in Seattle, and it's like that's very much Seattle, that area, and like Washington State's on the other side. It's more mountains, more country, like middle of nowhere. Yeah, very different. So
Eastern Washington wants to be its own separate state.
Yeah.
It's super red, whereas the west side is super blue, and they just
right.
Yeah, the population's in the Seattle area in Western Washington, so if they want something, they get it, and the east side feels not represented. Like that's, and they're not wrong,
right? Like, so what? So give me, after college, you went through those. I guess in 4 to 5 years. Some people are like me. I did like 6.5. But what led to becoming a fireman? What was kind of the next steps after college that really like, all right, this is how I'm going to make my way in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone who's watching, right? Like, I know you're like, this guy looks like he's 12. I get it. I'm 35, right? Like, I had college debt. I graduated 10 plus years as a firefighter. Business, like, I'm not 12. It's good genes. I do appreciate that from my father. But no, it's a great question. So went to college and was like, man, I want to get out from the strict thumb of my parents. They were military and strict, but they're also like super Republican conservative strict. Hey, we don't like Disney now, so we're gonna like get rid of all the VHS tapes. Like
there's
super right. Like people are like, oh, have you seen this show? I'm like, no, sorry, I live in a cave. I can't watch TV. I sneak Boy Meets World when they're out of the house for like an hour. Like that's my naughty sneaking, right? Like so
the purge mentality. We have to get rid of all influences that are evil,
right? And then
have some resemblance of it.
Yeah, so all of a sudden you can have Beauty and the Beast back, right? Like but no, so I went to college. Like, I didn't want to go to college, first of all. So for everyone who's listening, like, oh, I'm being forced to go to college. Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go. But again, super strict.
Because that was the model of success, right?
That was the model of success, yes.
You'll be set for life if you have a 4-year degree.
The phrase that was thrown around is, if you don't go to college, you'll be a statistic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You will be unsuccessful, destitute. List goes on and on. So like, hey, you have to go to college. And I was like, well, I don't want to go to college. I graduated high school. I graduated early, and they're like, hey, you need to go right now. And I was like, I want to take a year off and like figure stuff out. Like, college is expensive, and I feel like that's a waste of money to just like go to college. They're like, well, we're going to enroll you in UW Tacoma. And for everyone else who's across the country that doesn't know UW Tacoma, it's a branch of the UW in Seattle that's in another city called Tacoma, and it's kind of an armpit of a city. At least it was back then. And I was like, I don't want to go there. Like, that's the armpit of schools over here. Like, I don't want to go there. My buddy was like, hey, I'm going to SPU. Why don't you come with me? And I was like, anything's better.
Yeah.
So I ended up signing up and went there, and it was stupid expensive. It's a private school. But I went there because my buddy was going there. Like, that's the only reason I went. And so I was like, well, now I have to figure out what I'm going to do, right? And they don't let you major in lunch or recess. So I was pretty out of as far as like what I wanted to do. And
lunch or recess, that's a great one.
I was like, oh, he didn't think that was funny.
It took me a second. It's like, that's good though.
And so but seriously, like, that was my mentality, right? Like, why am I going here? And so I wanted to study abroad. And again, my super conservative parents were like, you're not going abroad. Like, that's ridiculous. Why do you need to go abroad? That's not good. I was like, no, like, I want to get experiences and see the world from a different viewpoint. Like, there is more to this life than you are showing me. I feel like the Aristotle or Plato, the cave and the shadows, I forget which one it is, but right, like, that's what I felt like. I was in the cave seeing the shadows and being like, this there's got to be more than this, right? Like, there's light, there's outside world. Like, I need to study abroad. And so, being the somewhat devious person that I am, I was like, hey, if I take a language major, I'm required to study abroad to graduate.
Yeah.
So suddenly I'm the victim. Like, oh, sorry guys, I have to study abroad.
To get my degree.
Yep. So
died.
Yep. Too bad. So I studied abroad. And the first like 7 weeks were there. No, first 4 weeks. Right, the first week we're there, and they're like, hey, make sure that you go to the internet cafe and tell your parents are fine. Well, fast forward 4 weeks, and they're like, hey, so it's come to our attention that one of our students hasn't contacted their parents at all yet. And everyone's like looking around the room, like, who is the monster that wouldn't say hello to their parents, let them know they're fine? And I was like, twiddle my thumbs. Like, Steven. Yeah. They called me out. They're like, Steven, you go to the internet cafe today and you tell your parents you're fine. I was like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Seattle's not far away from where my parents live, right? Like, and for everyone who's looking at going to college is as far away as you make it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to go home like every week, or you don't have to return phone call. Like, your parents aren't popping in at you on campus. So if you're like, oh, I need to get away, like, I went to college 40 minutes from my house, and I saw my parents on major holidays just as if I was on the other side of the country.
Oh, wow.
Like, I disengaged hard. Right. And studying abroad was no different, which was funny. Like, to me, I felt no different. Right. I'm seeing on major holidays. Like, I'm not calling home every week or month. Right. Like, so me going away, in effect, to me, was no different than if I was at school 40 minutes away, because you're as far away as you make it.
Right.
So yeah, I studied abroad, and that was awesome, and just opened my eyes. And
where did you go abroad?
Yeah, so I studied Spanish, and SPU's philosophy is that language doesn't exist in a vacuum. So wherever you study is the name of your major. So for me, I went to Costa Rica, Panama, Guatemala, and Nicaragua.
Wow.
It was legit. And so it was Latin American studies. But the whole time you're with host families, except for in Guatemala, because the M16 gang they'll kill you. So they'd like put us in a secure compound there. But it was cool. Like, we had a host family that, like, it was like an orphanage. So we went, and they gathered us all up. They're like, hey, welcome to Costa Rica. And all of a sudden, like, all these families start showing up. And they're like, hey, Charlie, you're with them. And all of a sudden we're like, what? Like, Steven, you're with this family. See you Monday. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And took us. And then we were just dispersed all over the city, all over San Jose and Costa Rica.
Yeah, wow.
And it was, super cool. And so we're with that family for 10 weeks, 2 weeks at a time. So we'd be there for 2 weeks, and then we go to the next country for 2 weeks, come back to that family. So we had this like family experience, and like seeing the world through all these other people's lives and how they live, and like legitimate life in a different country, the way that they would live it, which was so cool. And then they had great presence. Like, we went to Panama, and Donald Rumsfeld was waiting to talk to the like parliament person that we were talking to.
Oh, wow.
It was legit. And so we're talking to like heads of states and artists and poets and like the movers and shakers of all these different countries, which was just amazing. And they're being like, hey, this is the real history. Like, you bombed the shit out of Panama and set up this school of assassins here. And we're like, oh my gosh, like, America's terrible. So the program was called LASP, Latin American Studies Program. But we had a bunch of different acronyms, like Learning America Sucks program, or the Licensed Scabies Project, like depending where we were and the stuff that we're going through. So it's like, yeah, but it was cool. In Panama, we stayed with the indigenous people on the islands right off of the Colombian coast, and just be like, hey, like, these people have been mistreated, and this is why, and it's how we treat like our Native Americans in America. Like, just mind blowing. Like, holy F. Or we go to the main city and be like, hey, we're going through on this bus tour, and we're seeing these different sites, and all of a sudden we're in this garbage dump, and we're seeing a 6-year-old kid who's like picking through trash, and this 80-year-old is picking through trash, and just be like, that kid is going to be that old man, and all he's ever going to know is this garbage dump.
Wow.
And so it's like this 19-year-old kid to see these things, and like just shattered my worldview.
Yeah.
Being like, what is going on? It's from privileged middle class America to there, and you fly back into South Beach, Miami, and eating wings at Hooters, and going back to your home and sitting in front of the fireplace in Christmas time with a pile full of presents, and be like, how am I just even internalizing the experiences I've had? It was just wild, which is awesome. And it's like, I need more, right? Like, I want to make a difference. And so college ends, and while I'm at college, I go to a summer camp. And I just freaking love it. I'm a camp counselor. I love the kids. I do just in my element.
Mhm.
Like I don't realize it at the time, but I love teaching. I love helping people grow. I'm super empathetic. Like these are things that are near and dear to my heart. And so having like these cabinet kids for 2 weeks at a time just is phenomenal for me. Like
Yeah.
we just have a great time. And so then my second year, I actually skipped my college graduation to go back to camp on time, like to get there early for
Oh, wow.
pre-camp.
Yeah. You love that
Because again,
camp
like
that
it doesn't.
much. I get that. Yeah.
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 Well, and pomp and ceremony don't mean anything to me. Like just
Right.
like famous people don't mean anything to me. Like I don't care that I have a diploma.
Right.
Like I have it somewhere. I could burn it and it wouldn't change my life.
Right.
Right. So if people are like, oh, you're not going to go to graduation, I'm like, no. Why am I going to sit in a room for 3 hours and have someone tell me that I can do it? And then like
wait in a line.
Yeah.
It's like I can go to Disneyland and do that and sit in the line.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Right.
Mhm.
Like this,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right.
Now, if you're like first generation going to college and that's a big deal, totally support you.
Right.
Right. For myself personally, I was going to be a statistic if I didn't go. I don't care.
Right.
Right. Like, let me go and play with the kids and do this stuff. So I go and do that.
Yeah.
And now I'm at this thing of realizing like summer camp is ending. I'm not going back to college.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back and live with my parents. Like,
oh,
this is the worst thing. This can't happen to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I get a hold of the camp directors. I'm like, hey, do you know anyone that's hiring? Like, I need to get a job and I don't want to go back home. Like, do you know anyone? Like, well, funny story. Like, we actually know a youth pastor on Mercer Island, which is like the rich part of Seattle area. It's this little island in the middle of the lake. And like, we have a youth pastor there who's looking for a high school intern. And you'll live with a host family on the island and you'll like get a monthly stipend and you'll serve this church. And I was like, live with a host family. I've been doing that for a semester. Like, that's easy.
Winner.
And again, yeah, winner.
yeah.
Not paying rent and food, like hang out with another different family that's not my own and play with kids. Like, I'm in. Like, why wouldn't I be? Like, I'm not going home. And so I go there.
Yeah.
And all growing up, I had thought I'll do a bunch of different things. And when nothing works out, then I'll be a firefighter, which is a terrible way to look at it. But that was that was like
your
verbatim my
plan.
mindset. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not necessarily backup plan, but like the plan, but like a really shitty plan. Right? Like, I'm going to do a bunch of things and it's not going to work out and I'll be a firefighter and that'll be great. Like, why wouldn't I just skip to let's be a firefighter and that'll be great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So I'm there and I meet a firefighter in the area from Kirkland. He's like, hey, have you ever thought about being a firefighter? I was like, I think you'd be really good at it. And I go, funny story. And I say that, and he goes, don't ever lead with that in an interview. I was like, oh, okay. He goes, but you know, it's super competitive. You need to start now if you're going to do that. I was like, oh, I had no idea. Yeah. Like, I knew it was competitive. Like, everyone wants to be a firefighter. Why not? Mm-hmm. But I didn't like do research or anything. And so I looked at it and I was like, holy F. I mean, 1% of the people who try to be firefighters get the job. Like, it's that competitive. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is wild. And so I started testing and it costs money and it's a bunch of time and it's stressful as all get out. I'm not getting anywhere. And I was like, I need to improve my chances. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I need to not just test for Seattle, who's like, hey, be 18 and breathing. Like, I need to get my EMT and try to get my fire wand and maybe volunteer somewhere. Like, I need to do everything I can to put the deck in my favor to win against the house.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I did. I went and I got my EMT. I put myself through EMT. And then I went and I was like, hey, I need to find a department that will accept volunteers. And so at one point, there's a department that hands out 200 applications on a certain Friday morning every year. Like, that's their process, right? They're like, hey, we're going to hand out these applications this time, get in line to get one. Mm-hmm. So I was going home the night before from work and saw there was already like 80 people out at 4 p.m. the night before. And I was like, holy F, like, this is crazy. So I pull over and I hop out and I get in line and I call my parents and I was like, hey, do you mind like bringing me some food in a sleeping bag? Because I'm going to sleep on the sidewalk tonight. Like, that's the level of dedication to make this happen. I'd be like, wow, this is it.
Dang, this so like very blinder focused. Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, massive action.
I'm gonna go get it. Yeah.
And you find, and for me, like, I've taken, you know, a million courses from different gurus of teaching different things and marketing and everything else. And the theme that comes across in all of them is taking massive action.
Yeah.
Right. And that
not waiting around for it to happen, which is unfortunately a constant theme. I would say in my story, but continue.
Yeah. Perfectionism is a fancy procrastination.
Yeah. You're right.
Like
if it's not going to be perfect, I'm not going to move forward. I'm going to continue to stay where I'm at.
Yeah. And I noticed that like these other people that I know that I'm smarter than them, I'm like, man, this guy's dumb as a bag of rocks. Yeah. They're being successful. And I was like, what is the difference between me and them? And it's that they're taking action. Right? So fast forward back to that. Like I'm taking massive action. I'm getting my EMT. I'm sleeping on the sidewalk to get an application. I was like, hey, I need to do the next step. So I look for departments that have volunteers. And I found 2 of them in the within an hour and a half-ish, 2-hour drive of where I'm living. So I go to one, they're like, hey, we're going to start, in about 6 months, and we're giving preference to people that we already know. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll still put my application in. And then the next day, the other one's like, hey, we're having this meeting, tomorrow. Come and check it out if you want. I was like, cool. So I, dropped everything, went to the meeting. They're like, hey, we're starting actually immediately if you are doing this, but we require that you live in district. And I was like, I don't care. I'm doing it. Yeah. So I did. And I moved just to be able to volunteer for this department.
Wow.
I got an apartment just to again, massive action, doing everything I can to stack the cards in my favor. Right? And so I volunteer with them for about 1.5 years. And this time I got married. Right now I'm in my early 20s.
Okay.
And they hire 6 people. There's about 36 volunteers at this point. I'm the newest volunteer, or a group of the newest volunteers. I'm going against people who have had 10 plus years on the department volunteering, and they believe that the job is theirs. Like they're owed it.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah, that's another unfortunate mindset that's not healthy that successful people don't have. That I'm owed this. They should give it to me. I'm expected to have this. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm competing against these guys that, have all these relationships and have been in the department for a long time. And I beat them out.
Wow.
I'm in the bottom 2 of the 6 hires that get hired.
Yeah.
Everyone else that got hired has been with the department for a long time at this point. And so there's some bitterness between some of the older guys that were there and, towards me, but going for a dream, I'm not going to worry about that, and won them over eventually. But I made that happen. And then you fast forward 3 years and my department doesn't have money. And so me and the other bottom guy, we get let go.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Right. So, and suddenly my whole concept of security has been shattered.
Yeah.
Right. Because I got this pseudo government job that has a pension, and whoever hears of firefighters losing their work, right? Like that doesn't happen.
Right.
But it did. And so all of a sudden, I have a wife to take care of. Like this is bananas. Like, what am I going to do? And so that really put the entrepreneurial bug into me of being like, I need to forge my own path and have success on my own terms, because I no longer have the trust that these other things that are supposed to be a sure thing are going to be there for me in the end.
Yeah, that's good, Steven. All right. So if I could take a little just retrospect of everything you just shared, because everything you said was really good. And you kind of had some 3 little things that I wanted just to note for the listeners. One is just like the idea of exposure. I think that's I had a similar conservative Christian upbringing. I thought church looked like showing up in a coat and tie, and then I moved to California and I experienced a similar, like people have, tanks and sleeve tattoos on and like going to church. You're like, so just exposure to different cultures, different, even political backgrounds, like different country, like there's just something about the human element that and I think that's that you made the point of like, hey, it led to me going to that camp because I had high empathy. And I'm like, you developed, I think you seem like an empathetic person, but I think you developed a lot of that by just the exposure you had to life, getting out of the house, wanting to experience something different than your family at home. But there's also, I think it was something interesting you mentioned about that of like, you didn't find comfort at home. Therefore, comfort was in the pursuit of something. Comfort was in like making something happen, which I think was a cool trait. And as sad as that is about your family, and I'd love to hear more about that, of just where you are now with them and what happened. But it was interesting. I think the helicopter parent thinks they're creating a safe place, but they're really creating too safe of a place where they're suffocating them, and therefore there's comfort is not really registering to the child, and therefore an adult. And it's just interesting just hearing your story of like, somehow something got worked in your brain of like, this is not comfortable, but the pursuit is. I just don't want to be around that. So how do I move forward? I don't want this to be my normal. But anyway, yeah. And there was the third thing. I don't know. It's just interesting. I really like the firefighter thing of like just going and making it happen, falling forward. I like that more and more. I hear on this podcast, the guests that I talk to, like yourself, like the greatest model of success is falling forward. Like you just got to take action, make mistakes, learn from it, grow, and then just keep moving. So,
and on that part too, like in these times of like uncertainty and needing to pay bills and stuff, I held like 12 different jobs. Like I sold insurance over the phone. I sold vacuums door to door, like literally, and that lasted a day because I'm at 9 o'clock at night knocking on this lady's apartment door, being like, "Hey, I need to try to sell you this vacuum." And she's like, "My kid is asleep." I'm like, "I am so sorry. Like, this is not for me." So the next day I hung that up, but like I did it.
Right.
Like, like I've stocked Home Depot with shrubs. Like, you think about it, I've raked sand traps at a golf, like anything I could do to make money. I was like, I need to make this happen, and I'm going to make something happen. Like I'm not a victim.
Yeah. Oh
yeah, circumstances suck ass, but I'm not a victim.
Right. And if you didn't do those things, you wouldn't know that you didn't like doing them. Like that's the kind of the mindset of like, so many times we wait around for that perfect job, but I'm like, I don't really know what I like if I haven't actually tried doing different things.
Sure. Well, and I did know that like I'm not going to like selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Like
right.
I already knew I wasn't going to like that. Like I didn't try to know that. But the experience is like, this is far beyond as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And I'm not going to do it.
Like, so Steven, what then? All right. So give me a little bit more. So you end up, I'm guessing, finding another firefighter, but what really got you in the entrepreneurial mindset? What was that kind of that journey like of stepping in and really, you used great wording at the end of there and I lost it, but yeah, how you stepped into being more entrepreneurial thinking and having different streams of income and not being dependent on a salary or dependent on a one job kind of mindset. So
sure. Yeah. So I got let go. All right. And then the IFF, the International Association of Firefighters, like they're awesome. I have nothing bad to say about firefighters or departments like that. And they like, hey, this other department is hiring. We're going to get you like past the first round testing, straight into the process. It's already halfway through it. I was like, that's awesome. Interviewed with them and they did great. I got hired on with them like 2 months later. Right. And so now I'm on probation all over again, going through with these people. Bad culture. I didn't jive with them. I was with them for about a year and a half, and they're just like, you know what, you're not for us. Like, you're not saying you're not a good firefighter. Like, I think with the right department you are, but you just don't fit our culture. Like, I'm not a type A person. I'm very type B. And they were all CrossFit. Like, we're going to come to the gym and like measure our dicks. Like that was, I'm totally serious. They had like their names and times of like the different workouts and stuff all over it. And like yelling in your face, like, throw the kettlebell, like that's not how I work. Like that is not how I get motivated. And that's like, that was the culture. And so I was just like, this is, it's not me. And so we parted. And then the original apartment was like, hey, we have money back. Like, we have a position for you. Do you want to come back? I was like, yeah, like I would absolutely love to. And so I got back with them, and I was with them for another 5, 6, 7 years. Gosh, I don't know. It's 10 plus years in the fire service altogether, right? As a professional career firefighter. But within that like back and forth time is when I was like, again, that security thing, right? Because I was like, this is just crazy. Like with at the time of the second fire department, now I have a kid. I'm like, now I'm unemployed with a kid and wife. Like, again, like this is a sucky situation, but I'm not a victim. Like, I'm going to provide for my family.
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything I need to do to make this happen. And so And then I got involved with like Fortune Builders and Clever Investor and Fix and Flip Real Estate. Gary Kramer for Facebook affiliate marketing, Billie Jean for email and YouTube marketing. Like I took every sort of marketing, business, teaching thing that I could. Right? Like I didn't go to school for business, right? I was Latin American studies, so I could study abroad. My Spanish is garbage. I don't know how I graduated, but I did. Yeah. You can laugh, it's funny. Right? Like total joke. But like getting education to be like, hey, I need to learn to do better because that is how you increase your net worth and your abilities and how you get paid.
Yeah.
Right. Like I get paid garbage because my knowledge and skill set is garbage. If I want to get paid big money, I need to improve myself.
Yeah.
Right. So I did.
Yeah.
And I started a couple different businesses, and I did a couple different houses with fix and flip real estate. And it's like, you know what, as awesome as this is, and some people do really good at it, like it's not for me. I don't like various aspects of it. Again, going back to trying things to see if you like it or not. And I think over the course of it, I broke even for like the current cost, but not the cost of the course investment. Right? But I'm not bitter about it because it helped me develop into who I am and that growth mindset and like the opportunity and things. And same thing with the fire service. Like me as an entry-level firefighter in my early 20s to me now in my mid 30s, I'm a completely different person. You know, I would walk into someone's house and be like, excuse me, ma'am, sir, can I see your boo-boo? Is that okay? You know, and I'm like, hey, I'm Steven, what's up? Is that the problem? Let's see it. Bring it over here. I'm going to tell you what to do in your own house now because I'm the expert and I know what I'm doing.
Right.
You called me to solve your problem and we're going to do it. Like, are you staying here? Are you going to the hospital? Like, chop, let's go.
Yeah. Right.
Like I'm a completely different person. Now I'm the confident asshole. Right. So that's the, I'll still call you sir, ma'am, but like, I'm going to tell you how it is because that's what you called me. Like, let's get on. And I'm confident in my skill set. Like I am a really good firefighter. Yeah. I can cut you out of a car, no problem. Like that's child's play. I can take care. Like I know how to take care of you. And if you need to go to the hospital now, like it's not an issue. So good at what I do, good at my job, proud of myself. But you know, there's a lot of growth there. And for everyone who's listening, like just because you have bad experiences or good experiences or any experience, like life is experience, you can learn from it and you can grow from it and you can become better. And you don't have to be a victim. Right? It's not that like life happens to you, you're happening to life. Like, you are getting better. So take that, internalize it, think about it, like be working to be the better person that you can be. So small tangent, you know, you got it. Everyone who's listening, you can do it. You know, life sucks sometimes, but you know, and at this point, my just big struggles with my parents. I feel like I'm all over the place there, and I've got like 5 different like words that I'm
before you get there, let me just give a plug. Steven Lentz coaching.com for those. I mean, this is what Steven's talking about, all the skills that he's developed now that he just helps people in their business, helps them make money more efficiently and all that. So I definitely want to, like, just from what you said, just kind of give you a plug for that and where they can find you. But so man, like, and just so then, now shifting us back to your personal life, now that you're a father, you're a husband, how is your past now affecting that, and where are you at now in your story with your parents? So, I guess entrepreneurial wise, I'm doing this, and I've started like my own marketing agency doing this, and now I've gotten with LPW and I'm a platinum level coach. So I, like you said, like I help businesses do better because I got good at marketing because my stuff failed because I was bad at marketing. So I, doubled down on that, and it's like, oh, I got really good at this. Now I can help other people with it instead of like trying to do my own thing, which I prefer. Again, like that teacher thing, like I didn't know. Right. If you haven't done like Strength Finders, I would highly recommend everyone who's listening Strength Finders 2.0. Right. When I went through to get an interview and they're like, hey, what's your biggest weakness or what's your biggest strength? I'd be like, I'm good looking, right? Like I didn't know the words to describe myself. But when I took Strength Finders, and it's like, hey, you're super empathetic, you're a really good teacher, you got a bunch of responsibility, you've got like 2 or 3 other things, like these are your top 5 traits. And I was like, holy F. Yeah. Like it gave me the words of the things that were true to me. Yeah. And I resonated. I was like, this is exactly it. Like
it's so obvious to me now. Like, of course, I love taking care of people.
Yeah.
Like, I can see it in these 17 different examples of like, core memories of being like, oh yeah, I'm taking care of this person because like that's who I am. And oh yeah, I'm teaching because I'm doing summer camp because this is who I am. And like it gave me the words to describe who I am. So
yeah.
if you don't know, if you struggle with that kind of thing of like self-talk and like traits about yourself, go get Strength Finders 2.0, pay whatever the $20 or $30, whatever it is for the test and the book, and go through it and be like, oh, like these are really good things about me.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and
yeah,
I think
you're
that
making me want to go back and look through mine. I'm like, oh yeah, what am I? Yeah. Because I mean, I'll give a plug just for most personality tests, probably not all, but they like you're saying, they give you sanity of like, oh, this is why I did these things. This is why I come alive or get energy from doing these types of things because I was made that way.
Yeah.
This is who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a huge deal for me too. And I did that after I got let go from the first department when I was interviewing for the second one. So I was like, I need to like figure out more about myself so I can answer these questions for this interview that's coming up. And I did that. And it's like, holy F. And I freaking nailed the interview.
Yeah. Huh.
Like, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So going into the story of my parents, right? And this goes into the interview there of I'm just jumping around all over the place. Like, oh, I want to make sure I talk about this.
Well, you gave such a plug at the beginning. I'm like, I think our listeners, because I think a lot of my listeners, millennials, Gen Zers, like, yeah, I mean, they have stuff with their parents, and this is something like it's right here, right? Especially if you are a parent too, because it's coming up.
All right, so we're gonna get real, right? I'm gonna bring the energy up and down, and I might cry, but I'm totally serious. Like this is a hard story for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so spoiler to everyone who's listening, like bring out the hankies and cloths and stuff. Like, yeah. But so I'm at the interview, right, for the second fire department, and they say, hey, what was the time where you had like a lose-lose situation, you had to make a choice, right? Not outside the realm of the ordinary for a firefighter to have to make a bad choice, like the best of two evils, right? Yeah. And I wasn't prepared for it. It's not something that I was thought about, and I thought for a second, and I was like, oh, I've got it. Like, it impacts my life every day. And when I was about to get married, my parents were like, hey, we don't much care for the girl that you're going to marry. Like, we want you to call off the wedding. Like, already proposed, like the wedding's like a couple months away. Like, we don't really care for her, and we want you to postpone it. I was like, oh, and like, we're gonna make it easy. It's either her or us, right? Man, and so I had to choose the relationship with my parents, who, as much as we don't get along, like I still love them. Yeah. Right. It's my 7-year-old's peeking at the door here. Yeah. Like I still love my parents, even though it's just awful. And the relationship with this woman that I love, and being like, well, I'm going to hurt someone I love no matter what I choose. Right. Right. Obviously, I'm married. Obviously, my relationship with my parents is shot, so you can probably guess what I chose. Right. Right. And I chose my wife. But yeah, that was the nail in the coffin for my relationship with my parents. And again, like I live 15 minutes away from them. And the last time they saw my 7-year-old was when he was a baby, and they've never seen or asked for a picture of my 5-year-old or ever reached out. And I've done all sorts, like I try to call him. I had, like, my mom is the crazy one, like we call, we all know who the crazy one in the family is, right? Of like, this person steers the ship, and like this is where the waves come from. Right. That's my mom, and she's super stubborn, and like I like my dad. Like he used to be like super mean and strict growing up, and he's really changed, and he's a much better person over these last years after retiring. But like my mom runs the house, and he follows, whatever is said. And so I tried to bridge the gap by doing stuff with my dad. Like we meet for lunch every, a few months or something like that. And that eventually fell apart. Like it didn't really work, with the input. And, we tried to do, like, my wife and I, we would try to schedule times, like go and talk with them about different things, like, hey, you know, we want to have a relationship with you, like we want you to be part of our lives. I don't want, you know, my kids to not know their grandparents, and
Right.
like,
Yeah.
that's hard for me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and you like watch a movie and it's like, oh, family stuff, you're like, oh, it gets me, right? Like,
Yeah.
because my family stuff is garbage, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is awful. And
Mm-hmm.
so we tried to bridge a gap like a million different ways. And like I tried writing a letter. I was like, hey, you know, all we really want is for you to invite us over. Don't give us this nebulous, like, you can stop in. Like, that's not an invite. Be like, hey, we would like to see you on Friday the 17th for dinner, right? Like, just send us an invite. I don't care if we can't make it. Like, just show that you want to see us.
Right.
Because then, like, hey, drop in isn't, that doesn't mean anything. That's what you say to people that you don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you know they're not going to take you up on it.
Right.
Like that's all we want. Like we'll come over, we'll, you know, we'll bring dinner or whatever. Like we're happy to, like, but as far as like all we want from you in a relationship is just that you show that you want to actually be with us. It doesn't even have to be like a grand gesture, just an invite. We've never received an invite. You know, so we wrote letters like, hey, you know, these are the things, like, because they had like a laundry list of like being wronged, right? So addressing these things and be like, hey, like, I understand that you feel this way about this. Like, this is how this came from our end. Like, this is what we saw about this. Not attacking, like validating and being like, this is the story. Like, I hope you can understand why we're choosing things. And then, you know, I was like, and the reason I'm writing this letter to you is because you don't have to be defensive about it, and you can take your time. Right? Like, I don't expect you to, you know, write me a letter back or jump on the phone or like come meet me for coffee or something to talk about this. Like, I want you to take your time and deal with your emotions and deal with your feelings and deal with how you feel you've been wronged. You know, and let's try to fix this. Right. You know, the letter didn't work. I think they, you know, sent one back like a month or two later, but it didn't change anything. You know, and we offered to do counseling together. It's like, hey, like, we're happy to do
I mean,
therapy.
It sounds like you are initiating. You are, like you saying, making action, doing plans, like
literally everything I could think of. You know, and I was like, you can pick the therapist. I don't care. But like, let's, like, if you want to have a relationship with us, like, let's fix this. Right. You know, like, I want a relationship. Right. I'm desperate for a relationship. I want someone who loves me to tell me that they're proud of me. Like, shit, like, I'm starting to cry, right? Like, but like, this is what my heart is crying for. Right. As this young man with a new family, and like, I just want that relationship, and I know I'm not going to get it. And it's obvious, I still don't have it. Like, it's not there. And the real spot that just gutted me. I mean, it seems silly when I talk about it, but my kid's like 3 years old. Right. And again, they live like 15 minutes away. They know the neighbors. The neighbors have a kid. They're about my age. They have a kid, and they act like that kid's their grandkid. You know, they have like the little like handprint and a rock thing and shit. And it's just like, what are we doing here? And like, you have your own grandkid that you obviously don't care about. But they have a room full of kids' toys. Right. And at this point, like, going back and forth between like being unemployed and stuff, like, I don't have a whole lot of money. Right. And I don't ask my parents for anything. And these are like my old toys. And there's this little plastic table and like 4 plastic chairs and stuff. And I was like, hey, can I take one of these little plastic chairs for my kid? I was over there to visit something, like drop something off for them or whatever. And they like, I was like, can I have one of these chairs? And they're like, no. I was like, seriously? It's like, there's 4 chairs. There's 2 of you and 1 little girl. Like, I can't have a plastic chair for my kid. Your grandkid? Like, and my parents aren't poor. Like, they're quite well off, like very well off. Like, this is asinine that they would turn down a request for a plastic chair for their own grandkid, like, perspective wise. And then just kind of escalated from there. And I was like, you know what, forget it. Like, I don't care. And then they offered to like give me something or whatever, and they're like, hey, you know, why don't you come and pick this up? And so I went to go pick it up, and they just put my stuff out on the porch. I was like, fine, fuck it. Right. I'm done. I'm done. Like, just emotional turmoil and strife and just stress, right? And hurt and pain.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm over it. Like, why am I doing this? You know, for the last 5+ years, I've been trying to fix this and reach out and make this connection with people, again, like people that there's no good reason we can't have a relationship.
Right.
Like, my wife is a sweetheart. Like, on my mom's birthday, she canceled her own plans and went and baked my mom a cake and like spent the day with her because my mom didn't have any friends to hang out with. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Right.
But that's how it is.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds like
you
there's a value of being right more than being in a relationship.
Yes. And
yeah,
and it's like the graduation thing. I don't care about being right. Like, I could be, I don't care. Like, being right has no impact on the quality of my life that I live. Like, I just want to have a relationship.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's the mountain I can't climb.
Right.
Like, I just, there's no foothold, there's no purchase. I can't get through it. So that is the broken story of my family relationship.
Yeah. So how is it? Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. Like, yeah, I mean, I think for my listeners out there is like, at the end of the day, like, you could put forth effort, you can communicate what you want, but if it's not reciprocated, then there's a line. They have communicated what they want, and you're actually communicating something different. But if you're not, and you can't control other people's thoughts, you can't control other people's actions, they're going to do what they want to do. Which is, it's just interesting. But so how has this affected you now as a parent? How has it changed the way you perceive that of raising a kid?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge as far as like my interactions with my own kids, right? And like shitty vacations and like no say, no power, no
no voice,
no voice, right? Like, I love my kids to death, and I have a hard time being like, do I tell them that my parents just died in a car crash and that's why they don't see them?
Yeah.
Right. Like, they're getting close to the age of being like, you have a dad, right? I'm like, yeah. Where are they? 10 minutes away. How come I never see them? No. Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And like that's a real question that I struggle with, is like, do I just make something up and be like, yeah, they don't know you because they don't love us? Like, you know, like, that's crushing. You know, like,
yeah.
So,
well, I mean, or they just don't know how to love you. I mean, really, it sounds like that's
right.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. But I like the flair for the dramatic, you know?
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, but I mean, my relationship with my kids is definitely different. You know, being a present dad is really important to me. Making sure that my kids know that I love them, that I'm proud of them, and that I let them try to experience things and get hurt. You know, my kid falls down and gets hurt, I'm not running over immediately. Like, my instinct is to run over and scrape them up, but I'm gonna like slowly walk over and let them cry and be like, oh, this happened. And then when I'm, you know, like snuggle and be like, hey, this happened, right? Like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. Do you know why that happened? No.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you did this. Like, there are consequences for actions, and it doesn't mean that it's bad. Right? Like, you're not a victim. Like, it didn't happen to you. Like, there was a cause and effect, and this is the outcome, and we're going to work to make it better next time. We're going to learn from this, and that's okay. Like, it's okay that you got hurt. It's okay that you broke this thing. What's not okay is that you hid it or that you lied about it.
Right.
Like, I will always be more upset if you hide it and lie than if you just claim responsibility. Right? Like, that's what I want. I want you to become an adult who takes responsibility for their lives and charts your own course. Do I hope that you do certain things? Yeah, of course. Am I going to hold it against you that you don't? No, like, I have to know that you're going to live your own life, just like I had to go live my own life. Like, I had to escape the expectations of my parents to forge my own destiny and future, right? Like, and I don't want my kids to feel like they have to escape me to make that a reality.
Right. Wow, that's a good point. Yeah, that you are both a safe place, but also a catalyst to their growth and success. Yeah, it's a mix of both. That's really good.
Are they interested in something? Sure. Like, let's, you know, as much as I can afford to, let's give you the exposure to it. So I think that's how it's shaped me as far as my outlook to my kids. Now, you know, fast forward to now, and I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. Like,
Wow.
I'm in the thick of trying to raise mini humans that are completely separate people.
Right. Yeah. Their own unique individuals with thoughts and feelings. And yeah, that's really good. Well, Steven, we're kind of coming up on time here, but man, I'd love for you just to one, I just appreciate you sharing that all that was really great stuff, really powerful. But lastly, yeah, just give a plug for what you're doing, and where my audience can find you.
Yeah, love that. So, I mean, first off, thank you. I had a blast, right? Like reliving childhood trauma is always a wonderful thing. It's but no, so I mean, you'd mentioned it before. I do business coaching. I'm a business coach for people who are, business owners, entrepreneurs who want to get into that. Like, I help people figure out how to do better in their business and make more money, right? And I think I'll say two things about that. One is most small business owners, entrepreneurs are in business by default and not by design. Right? Like, you are good at making tables, or you can fix a sink or something like that. And so you start this business and you do it, and you kind of bottleneck because you don't understand business. You're really good at what you do. Right.
Yeah.
So for those people who come to that spot of being like, I'm ready to grow, like I need more clients, I need to figure out how to do lead gen or whatever, like that's where I live. Like, I'm happy to help you with that. And the flip side of that is for all you young kids that are looking, or not even necessarily young, but you're looking for that change of being like, hey, I want to do something more that makes an impact. And like, again, I'm looking for coaches. So if you're like, hey, that actually, like, I want to be a coach, like, that sounds interesting. Yeah. Hit me up and let's talk. I'm going to put a Calendly link. It's a 10-minute time slot in the show notes for Mr. Cartwright here. You can throw that in there, and you can book a time to chat me up.
Yeah.
So, be happy to chat and be like, hey, if you want to, again, if you're a business owner, like, let's talk about your business and do a little strategy. And if you are looking to be a coach, let's talk, right? Come find me and let's get you going. Because the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
Right.
Yep. So take action, because without action, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. StevenLentzCoaching.com. And man, thank you so much. I had a blast. And if you ever want to have me back, I'm happy to come back and chat with you, because we scratched the surface.
Yeah, we did. We dove down deep. We came, so I do appreciate it, Steven. That was a lot of fun. So thanks for sharing.
No, I had a blast. And yeah, thank you for having me. And I also have a podcast subject to change if you want to find me. So, and I'm just shotgunning everything here, but if you like what you hear and you feel like, yeah, this guy's all right, you can find me there as well. So